Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Application Committee meeting. I'm Councillor David M. Mahoney, Chair of the committee. We are not expecting a fire drill this evening. With the alarm sounds, you'll be directed to the nearest and safer exit by members of the team. Apologies for any absences. Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies tonight from Councillor Garrett, who's being subbed by Councillor Johnny Cope. Apologies from Councillor Helen Whitcroft, who's being subbed by Councillor John Skipper. And apologies from Councillor Jonathan Quinn.
Thank you, Jenny. Members of the committee, are you happy for me to approve the minutes from the last planning application meeting on the 22nd of May and the 5th of June? A. Yeah. Do any members have any declarations of interest they need to state before we start? Councillor White? Councillor Whitcroft?
The applicant came and did a presentation at the Windlesham Parish Council a good while ago, before a planning application was in anyway, and I was there.
Thank you. Councillor Whitcroft?
I've received an email and a presentation document from the applicant in respect of item number 5. Thank you.
Councillor Glower? Have all the councillors had that email? Okay, I think everyone except the subs have had that email, so add that to it. Okay, if there's no others, thank you very much. First up, we have a development management performance monitoring update from Mr. Partington. John to present.
Thank you, Chair. This is an information item only. The report summarises the performance for the last financial year and since April 2025. As reported on the update, there's a numerical error at paragraph 3.1. This should state 46% and not 43%. You'll see from the report that the performance targets for Surrey Heath for 2025-26 now align with the government targets. That is to say, 60% or higher of major applications determined within 13 weeks or with a time extension, and 70% or higher for non-majors determined within 8 weeks or with a time extension. And then finally, for appeals, the target is 10% or lower allowed, and that's calculated as a percentage of the total number of applications determined. This excludes enforcement appeals, certificates, and appeals against conditions. The graphs on pages 4 and 5 highlight that last year we exceeded the targets for planning applications, and we continue to exceed these targets this year. For appeals in 24-25, we achieved 2.1%, so well below the government threshold of 10%. And we continue that this year. We're less than 1% at the moment. A variety of appeals were allowed for 24-25, and that's shown in a chart on page 6. We reported to this committee on appeals allowed for quarters 1 to 3 in January of this year. And so this report only lists the 4 appeals allowed in quarter 4. The 1 appeal allowed so far in this financial year is also listed. These appeal decisions will be discussed in closed session, but if you have any wider questions about the performance monitoring report, happy to take those. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Members, do you have any questions to ask of the officers? Councillor Victoria.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if there had been any complaints that have been received by the council that pertained to planning. That was all.
We have received a number of complaints during the financial year. They're mainly at stage 1 level complaint, but I would say that certainly over the last 3-4 years, the number of complaints the service has received as a whole has massively reduced. The nature of planning is that sometimes you're going to get complaints about the service, and eliminating all complaints is extremely difficult.
I just wonder if the next committee, if we could have circulated by email the complaints that have been received and the reason for the complaint to the members of the committee.
I know that goes to P&F committee, but Mr. Chinio, if you want to come in on that.
Yeah, so there's a format for that. So that goes to a separate committee via the customer services team. So they would basically analyse all the complaints through stage 1, stage 2, ombudsman complaints as well. So that would be the process it would go through in terms of that. So we're not here to discuss in terms of what complaints go to planning and things like that. There's a set criteria and a set meeting for that to actually go through that process.
So if I can just come back on that, I sit on performance and finance scrutiny. We get the level of complaints and the number of the level of complaints. We don't always get the breakdown of the detail. And I'll look to the chair as to whether or not he would support members of the committee having a little bit more clarity around the complaints that pertain specifically to planning. Thank you.
Sorry, did you want that under the remit of the planning committee or under the P&F?
I just think it would be good for members of the planning committee to understand the sort of complaints that come in, and also to have the opportunity to, I've sat on this committee for a long time, I've been a councillor for a long time. The whole planning department and processes within planning are vastly improved, in my opinion. And if we're not monitoring it in that way, we don't have the opportunity to celebrate the success or to learn from it.
I don't think that falls under the remit of the planning committee, though. I think it does under the P&F scrutiny, definitely. I'm not sure it's the remit of this committee to do that.
We have information comes through to us on performance, and it's part of the performance. But
Maybe we should take
I'm
it.
happy to be guided by the chair if you don't feel that you want to know.
Will we take it up with the MO afterwards, have a private conversation? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Cope.
Thank you. Just in terms of the number of appeals allowed, I understand obviously that we're more than hitting the government guidelines, but based on the data, it looks like the majority of appeals are being allowed out of the 41. Is that normal? Is that consistent with previous years, or have we seen any sort of changes in that?
The trend in terms of planning applications has been quite consistent. Forgive me, I haven't got the statistics for previous years in front of me. Obviously, before we were monitoring on all types of appeals, so that figure of 46% is all types of appeals. So it includes your enforcement notices. It includes appeals against conditions which you've imposed. The government's quite clear that you shouldn't consider those in the statistics. So actually, there was a number of those, for example, in the last financial year. So actually, I would certainly say in Q4 of the last financial year, and this quarter so far, the performance has significantly improved from what we were seeing at the beginning of the last financial year.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to add my congratulations on the exceeding all the targets by quite a long way, and especially the appeals. And it's great to see we need to process planning applications in a certain time, and that helps deliver the homes and the businesses and things that people need. So I think that's really important, and well done to the team.
Thank you, members. Any other questions of the officers? We'll now go on to the only planning application we have on the agenda tonight, which is Building D, Windlesham Campus, London Road, Windlesham. Neville, would you like to introduce the application, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to Building D, which forms part of the UCB campus site on London Road, Windlesham. The application is before us today as it is a major proposal. There is a minor update to report as per the update sheet, confirming no objection from Windlesham Parish Council. Buildings D forms part of the wider UCB campus site situated on the northern side of London Road. The main site access is from Sunning Hill Road, with the London Road access only utilised in the case of emergency. The campus buildings are largely contained centrally within the site, with the wider grounds comprising of extensive landscaping, including mature trees to all boundaries of the site. These show an overview of the existing site. The site was acquired by UCB, a global pharmaceutical company who specialise in research around rare diseases and neurological conditions. The site was previously occupied by Eli Lilly, also a global pharmaceutical company, in 2021. The site benefits from extant permission for the wider redevelopment of the site, which included the refurbishment of Building D. During the soft strip of the building, it was discovered that the structural quality and foundations of the building were not fit for purpose, and this therefore forms the basis of the current proposal. These are some images showing the existing situation on the site. This shows the rear yard area. We can see that the wider site is currently a construction site, whilst we can also see the mature trees to the boundary. These show some existing floor plans and existing elevations. These are the proposed floor plans. The proposal makes efficient use of the internal space whilst creating additional floor space at mezzanine level, with only a 6% increase to the footprint of the building. The height of the building would also be increased by 4 metres, largely owing to the plant screen, which would screen views of the additional plant required to the roofscape. There are a few minor changes to the service yard, although these would be contained to the existing hard standing. The proposed development would not be inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, satisfying paragraph 154G of the NPPF, whilst it would also be acceptable in all other regards. No objections have been raised by statutory consultees or as a result of the public notification exercise. The redevelopment of the building would support the existing employment uses on site, make more efficient use of land, and provide a more fit-for-purpose building. The proposal is therefore recommended for a grant of approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions for the planning officers? Was there any issue wish to discuss the application? The author's recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. May I have a proposer and a seconder? Okay, could you just have a show of hands, please, for 4? Unanimous? Unanimous. The application has been granted, subject to conditions. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming here tonight. Hope you have a lovely evening, what's left of it. And we are finishing this session to the public. Thank you.